Welcome everyone, as you guys are filing in. This is a big one. We had a lot of people sign up for this.
I'm excited.
As everyone is joining, if you could write anything in the chat, it could be where you're calling in from, what you're eating for lunch, just to test if the chat is working. That'd be great. Las Vegas, Dallas. Hello, Jennifer. Charleston. I really want to go to Charleston. Oh, we've got a Nairobi, Kenya. That's very cool. Okay, cool. Looks like the chat is working. Eating Chex Mix. That sounds very nice. We can give a massive discount on a LiveFlow subscription if anyone could guess Josh's favorite lunch spot around the New York City office. I don't even have to ask you, Josh. I know what it is.
That's right. That's right. If there's any Chipotle fans out there, I don't know if we're allowed to do endorsements, but I really enjoy Chipotle.
Love it. Cool. Looks like we have a critical mass of folks, so we can go ahead and get started. This will be recorded, and we'll share the recording afterwards as well, and make sure that to get the CPE credit as well by going to the Earmark app and taking a short quiz after this. But to kick things off, March is financial modeling month at LiveFlow. So what we're doing is we're doing a 3-part live course, all focused on financial modeling. So it's a series designed to take a beginner to advanced stages. And so today will be part 1 of 3. For the next 2 Tuesdays, so the 12th and the 19th, we'll feature parts 2 and 3. So make sure to sign up for those as well. Today will be beginner friendly, an overview and introduction of modeling, the basic principles and key concepts. And then we'll cover some practical applications, and we have some fun exercises that'll hopefully get you all involved as well. And so that it's not just us talking at you. Yeah, as always with any LiveFlow webinar, if there's questions, please submit them through the Q&A or the chat as you think of them. You don't have to wait until the end, and I can kind of pop in and ask Josh as they come in. Any questions to start off with before I hand it over to our professional over here? Okay, Josh, I'll hand it over to you. I'll stop talking, and we can jump right in.
Thanks so much, Sej. Yeah, no, it's exciting to kind of talk about, I guess, financial modeling to this audience. I see some familiar faces who joined us for the data visualization webinar. I guess that was maybe 2 months back. Yeah, for this 3-part series, this first one's going to be taken by me, but then my more talented colleague Alicia is going to be leading the other 2 sessions. What we're planning to do for this first session is first delve into why is financial modeling important and relevant in the first place, right? I'm sure a lot of you are creating certain dashboards that are really useful for your clientele, whether that be your own business, right? If you're like an in-house finance team, or if you have advising restaurants or dental offices, whatever it may be, right? You're using QuickBooks data in order to make a dashboard or a financial model that can be useful for them. Financial modeling is a huge course. In college, there's a full semester dedicated towards financial modeling, and definitely I will not be able to cover all of it. With that said, I wanted to try and figure out the best way for this first session to understand, what makes, first off, what is a financial model? The second thing is, what is a good financial model and what is a not so great financial model? And then the last part we're going to look at is actually trying to fix a model that we categorize in that not so great. And so to actually start off, what I'm going to do is share my screen just got a little bit of a small deck here for us to look at. Just give me 1 second here as I pull it up. Okay. Second here. Zoom is being great with me right now. Okay. All right, we'll go with the, oh, here it is. There we go. Saj, are we able to see the screen? The PDF?
Yeah,
okay.
I can see it perfectly. If anyone on the call can't, just write into the chat.
Yeah, and with regards to, questions, we'll definitely have some time in the end. We depends on how with the nature of financial modeling questions, depends on how in depth we need to go. But for any quick type questions, feel free to chime in. So the first thing that I want to, I guess, of course, just quickly touch on is LiveFlow. I know that there's a lot of people on this webinar who may have seen financial modeling and say, you know what, LiveFlow, this company LiveFlow is hosting something, maybe I should check it out. What exactly LiveFlow is, the company that Saj and I work for, is a cloud-based platform that helps you automate financial reporting. All that means is a lot of the manual work that you're doing right now in terms of taking QuickBooks data, downloading it as a CSV, creating a report, and then the next month having to do it all over again, that is eliminated, or for the most part, very much eliminated with LiveFlow, because if you're able to create some of these dashboards, you're able to kind of run it on autopilot. And so that's what LiveFlow is. And maybe when you see the actual workbooks, it'll give you a little bit of better context of what we do. But that's what LiveFlow is, an advanced financial reporting on autopilot. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Specific promotions, if you're looking at LiveFlow for the first time, I talked with our head of sales, and for all new customers, we're offering you a 20% off. Should be a double F there, for 3 months before March 15th. So say that you were on the webinar with Josh Thomas, and they'll extend that discount for you. For existing customers, if you like some of the premium templates that you're seeing, what we can do is we can, if you buy one, we'll give you one additional premium template for free. All you need to do is schedule a call for me, with me, and Saj is going to drop at some point in the call my Calendly, so you're able to do that. And we can catch up about all things regarding LiveFlow, not just premium templates. Okay, so this is what you'll learn here, right? The different users of models for financial modeling. We're going to take a look at comparing two models, what is a not so great model and what is a very good model. And then lastly is looking at some beginner-friendly spreadsheet formulas and functions. One of the functions that we are going to cover, which may not be exactly beginner level, but I think is going to be covered consistently in this session, the next session, the following lesson. So if you don't get it, it's totally cool. It's the same formula that I mentioned in the data visualization webinar, which is index match. The reason why there's such a heavy emphasis of it is it unlocks so much for you as a LiveFlow user and just more broadly in financial modeling. And we're going to cover that formula here as well. Okay, let's now get into what exactly is financial modeling, right? Financial modeling is, you can go in wholly different directions with it. But at its base case, there are two types of people who are interacting with financial models. There are the modelers. Those are the ones who are creating it, looking at it from the back end, right? Using the formulas to create these dynamic dashboards or dynamic models to predict cash flow. What are the drivers, etc. Right? Those are our modelers. It may be that you are, the accountant, and you're actually the one modeling. And of course, there's plenty of people like that. And others, it's you have a team of people who are, modeling certain elements of the business. And so that's one component. The other component is the decision maker. They're not the one, or decision maker or the client in this case, right? They're not the ones who are kind of going into the back end, understanding, the index match formulas. They're more so concerned of what is the output of the financial model, right? How can I make informed decisions for my business based on this financial model? So the key questions for them is, okay, wait, what are your assumptions for this type of model. Why are you saying that I'm going to, be negative cash balance, in 4 or 5 months? Those are the type of things that decision maker may be wondering. At the same time, it doesn't have to be cash flow forecasting, right? In the models that we're going to look at, it's actually going to be, certain dashboards that everybody here can actually create on the call, right? Is creating this financial model so that you can give an accurate pulse on what your P&L statement looks like, or certain KPIs, or your balance sheet, right? And that decision maker is using the financial model to kind of make decisions for them. At a high level, right, what we're doing is we're tracking performance, creating high-level targets, detailed budgets, and managing forecasts. But I think you actually know that better than I do in terms of what people use financial models for, right? The one word that I will consistently use throughout this entire session, which I think is very important, is how do I create models that are dynamic, right? You're going to see in our bad, or I don't want to say bad, but less efficient financial model, how the user did not make a dynamic model. And what I mean by dynamic is that when you want to change one thing, it doesn't flow through the rest of the model. And the reason why that's particularly problematic is because if that's great, if your employee number one has created the model, and visually it creates the output that you're looking for. But let's just say, unfortunately, employee number one decides to leave the company. Well, guess what? Now you have a model where you don't know exactly what needs to change, unless that employee is actually there pointing out, hey, actually in D15, there's actually a hidden formula that I had put in that was hard coded. And so be sure to change that every single month, right? And you're going to see an example in this, in the not so great model. Okay, so that's why financial models are important and the different users of financial models, right? There's the back end, as we call it sometimes, right? The back end user, and then this person who's the decision maker. So the first one that we're going to look at is, I'm going to ask you guys actually in the chat to make it a little bit more interactive, what you guys think of this model. And let's see, Sahej, what exactly do you see right now? Is it on an Excel spreadsheet right now, or is it still the PDF? I think it's
I can see the demo Acme financial dashboard.
You do.
The
Okay.
bad model.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is actually something fairly similar to what we received as a client coming to us and saying, hey, listen, this is a sample dashboard that I created, and then we kind of tweaked it up from there, right? And of course, all this is our demo company, flowing in here. But I'm gonna go ahead and just scroll here, and I'm gonna give a minute here for you guys to take a look and give me a quick notes on what you're noticing about this financial model. Feel free to just put it into the chat.
We have formatted poorly as our first answer.
Yep. Great.
We have another formatting inconsistent and ugly percentages.
Yeah, that's funny. That's my favorite. Okay, yeah, exactly. Those are both right. Right. So there's, well, I don't want to say, people view information differently, right? For some users, right, all they're looking at is the numbers. They don't really care about how it looks visually. Quite frankly, in this session, we're actually not going to put an entire focus on the visual component. The visual component is a whole different, actually literally was another webinar, right, which is the dashboard. But we want to figure out how can we make this underlying hood of this model more efficient. The notes that you guys mentioned about formatted poorly, etc., 100% true. And maybe I should have phrased differently after looking through this model. There's certain things that you're going to notice as I scroll through this model that is not ideal. And if you take a look at this formula bar here, it's going to give you a hint, right? You'll start to notice that these were all hard coded here, right? So what happens is, you've got, total cash labeled. You've got here gross margin. I'll take a look at this. What happened here? So it looks like one person pointed out the percentage, 100% true. They've got a concatenate function going here, and they've also merged these three columns. And so what's interesting about this is I'm thinking that this is going to take your gross profit and divide it by your profit and loss. But then they multiplied it by 100, and then they added a percentage after. So there's more ways, more dynamic ways that we can make this, but this is definitely a good start, right? At least this person has started to think about what are the items that I'd like to show to my clients, right? And then, I think we had a comment in the chat about the chart. There's something particular about this chart, which is if you take maybe I went too quickly. If you take a look at this chart, actually, it doesn't actually make too much sense. And here's why, right? Your total income is a part of the pie chart, right? And then you have a breakdown of the income. It's not the most effective way of showing this. Maybe it's the idea to show yeah, it's not the most effective way because in reality, most likely you just want to the total income will always be 50% of this pie chart, right? In reality, what you probably want to present is these two figures, right? And so that's one item here, right? Which is how we can arrange this pie chart. All of that is 100% true. The focus actually that I'm going to have for this when we get into fixing this model is actually not the visual components. It's actually to make this more dynamic, right? How do we make it so that, how can we make this so that it's a drop down, right? So that instead of me hard coding, at 3/1, 2024, right? None of this changes. As a matter of fact, it's the date formatting, but none of this changes, right? And so how can I make it so that if it's March 2023, all of this becomes March 2023, etc. Right? Another thing that I want to point out about this type of this workbook is take a look at the bottom. It's actually the first thing that I look at when I look at somebody else's model that I don't know. It is very confusing to me as to what is the underlying hood, right? The end user, the decision maker may be looking at this, but if I'm a modeler, if I'm an analyzer, if I'm an accountant or a bookkeeper, and I'm trying to understand how did somebody create this model, it's not clear to me profit and loss of what? Is this two different companies? Nope, it looks like the same company. Like what is the difference? And then I see, oh, this is 2024 data and this is 2023 data. First off, I think that we could just probably have one P&L statement that's 2023 beginning all the way to end of 2024. But let's for argument's sake, let's say that you want to keep the separate worksheets. It's probably best to actually relabel this, etc. But we're going to get into that when we fix this model. Okay, so that is the not so great model, right? We've highlighted some of the issues we see there. And now we're going to get into another model, right? So let me pull that up. And if there's any immediate questions, feel free to shout out in the chat as I pull this up. Great. Okay, Sej, do you see my screen here?
Yeah, I see the LiveFlow monthly client reporting dash.
Okay, perfect. So what we'll see here, right, is first thing I notice, I'll give, Alicia actually created this model, right, is it's pretty clear to me what's kind of going on here, right, at least to a certain degree. I see already without even touching anything, one, there's a how-to, always helpful when you're thinking about increasing the number of employees or whatnot, or multiple people touching this model for the first time. I see that there's labels, right at the bottom of it, super helpful for me to understand. Okay, this is this is the input tab, this is the dashboard tab, right? And now let's take a look at what's actually created in the dashboard. Okay, so this is the financial model that we characterize as doing fairly all right. Maybe we'll go into the comment section. Is there anything that people want to highlight in terms of what they notice about this model in particular compared to the previous one?
Need different colors.
Yep. I'll take a look here as well so that people can see. Yeah,
It's easier to read than the first model. This one is structured. Looks like it's dynamic.
there we go. Whoever that, I don't have an open view of the chat, but whoever that is, thank you. Yes, it's my favorite word, dynamic. Oh, perfect.
Organized, yes, 100%. It's organized better than the earlier one.
Yes, yes. So I do notice how people have noted the visual component, and that is 100% true, right? Like in one sense, for me personally, like that is data visualization is you can do all this analysis, but if you can't present the information effectively to the person who's making decisions or who you're presenting to, then it's not the analysis is kind of null in one way, right? Is how you articulate those points, and that's exactly right. Right here in this dashboard, we now have a comparison of here's this month compared to last month, right? Here's the month over month growth. Okay, gotcha. Here's what a chart that's comparing maybe total income to total expenses and so forth, maybe projections, right? We were able to highlight different components of the business, right? So vendor spend, right? It looks like they've got one vendor here in our demo company, but you're highlighting multiple factors, right? And then we've also got some, budget versus actuals, and it's formatted cleanly, right? That's like the first thing that first people to notice the themes, right, in the colors, right? So if your company has a certain theme to, then why not help your brand, right? For us, it's LiveFlow Blue, right? And so, if there's anything that can help you showcase your brand, why not put it into your work, right? So that when your client is thinking about, oh yeah, who put together that analysis? Oh yeah, like it was presented cleanly, and somehow there's some connection that it's not always the case that clean visuals is good work and good analysis, but sure does make it a lot easier, right? The other thing that I want to note, right, um, is if we take a look at, we've got some percentages here, which I think is very good, right? To compare month over month. That's something that we had just like static figures in our previous model, but here we're able to see on a month over month basis, how did the company do, right? The other thing that I'm going to kind of really focus on and try to kind of instill into our audience here is how important or how like helpful drop downs are in all our premium templates that Alicia and I are designing right now. It's really emphasizing these drop down menus, and in part, it's because it's literally a data validation, meaning you really can't select anything beyond it, right? So how can you possibly get an error if like it's not appearing in the drop down? But if you did want to modify it, of course, when you go to the underlying of what is the data validation, you can change that and you can remove the data validation. But why that's important is if you have multiple people touching the model, right, there is a more of a check before this entire thing breaks, right? The risk that you have with spreadsheets is that you see this hashtag error, right? And for some people, for me, it's like a natural thing, right? Like that means that you're using the spreadsheet effectively in that you're trying different things and you're trying to make things more dynamic. But for others, it's like, oh my gosh, like obviously when you go to a client, the last thing you'd want to have is like in your dashboard, like a hashtag error, right? That's not ideal. And so the drop downs kind of help you avoid that. And I'm going to show you how to kind of create that. We covered it in the visualization, but I'm kind of going to go over it here as well to kind of help our new users as well. So yeah, I think we've kind of seen how this one has a little bit more of theme to it, more of a better hygiene, workbook hygiene, as I'd like to call it. And so now we've seen two different models. I'm going to pause there to see if there's any questions on that front before we keep going. Is there anything in the chat or no?
Nope, no questions as of right now.
Okay, great. So let's just go. Where were we? So yes. So what makes a good model, right? We covered this, right? And I'm not going to rehash all these things, right? But we've noticed that the better models have relevant, up-to-date information, right? And we're able to make things a little bit more visual, right? A little bit more dynamic, right? This component, what makes it a great model, right, is that it's future-proof, right? Dynamic and future-proof. Future-proof meaning that, okay, it's February 2023. If we go to March 2023 in our not so great model, what's going to happen is that I know that I have to change that first cell that we saw that said February 2024, and we got to change that to March, but I don't know what that cell is linked to, or like if anything else is hard coded. We already saw in like 2 or 3 rows that it was still referencing February 2024, right? And so future proof, meaning that how can we make it more dynamic, so that if somebody leaves, or if the team is struggling to update the model, then we can go back and change it with ease, right? Okay, so now is the fun part, and probably the remaining time is we're going to try to tackle the original model that we had, and we're not going to focus as much on the visual components. We're going to focus on making things more dynamic, right? And certain formulas. Before I'm intentionally taking this moment to say, like, certain things that you're going to see, maybe we're going to try to keep it basic, right? But this is going to be shared. This webinar is going to be shared with our participants, right?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. You're going to be able to kind of look back and see exactly what we did. But so if something goes above you for during this time, that's totally okay, right? You can always reference this, and we're going to get started and try to figure out how we can make our original model more dynamic. Okay, so let me go ahead here. So I'm going to do this actually. I'm going to give everybody here a view-only copy of this, and hopefully I don't mess this up where I give everybody edit access. So let's anyone with the link, copy link. And if I drop this into the chat, I'm hoping that, where did the chat go? Oh, okay. Okay, I'm hoping that I just shared a view-only copy of the workbook so that everybody can make a copy of the workbook and not edit access. Otherwise, we'll start seeing everybody's work. So if anybody could just confirm that that was a view-only copy, that would actually be great.
Josh, I have access to the document.
Okay.
It was shared with me yesterday, so I can't confirm, but
I don't see the link. Oh, you know what I did? I shared to the panelists. How do I do this? Oh, host to
everyone, yeah.
Host to everyone. Okay, let's take 2. All right, let's try this again. Anybody could just great, no problem at all. If somebody just give me the view only. Okay, great. We can proceed. So let's take a look here. So here's the things that I'm gonna cover. It's not everything, right? I want to, because we just don't have enough time in the 30 minutes. But I'm gonna try to give you the nuts and bolts to kind of create the things that I think are effective. First off is here, right? I'm just gonna highlight in yellow the things that we're gonna try to address in this call. So you see how this is not dynamic. Anytime I'm changing the month, it's not even a drop down, right? So is there a way in which we can, every time we make this January 24, everything correspondingly also becomes January 2024, right? So I'm just gonna highlight the things that we're gonna touch upon, right? We're gonna say total expenses by month, right? I'm gonna say that we're gonna address that as well, right? How can we make it so that if the month changes, then the total expenses for that month is gonna appear here as well, right? We're going to take a look at this right here, which is our concatenate formula. Is there a more dynamic way in which we can do that? Excellent. And then if we get time, we're going to see if we can arrange this this chart right here. Of course, there is other information that that's here, revenue year to date and so forth. Total cash, obviously that's just referencing your balance sheet instead of your P&L statement. For the purpose of time, we may not be able to get to it. However, at the end of the webinar, if you are curious, hey Josh, do you have time to go over X? We can try to address that. But if there is no other questions, we're going to proceed and try to see how can we make this more dynamic. How can we make this more future-proof? Okay. Before even looking here, the first thing that I said before is how can we make this a little bit more organized, right? Few things here. we're going to, if you're going to make this presentable, right? Sometimes you may have a cover sheet, right? You may want to have your, company name right here. And once again, I'm not focusing on the visual components. I'm kind of showing you the structure in which to have these models, right? Your company name, date, right? What report is this? Is this February 2024, etc., right? And any other information that you think is relevant for a cover page, right? The next thing that I'm going to actually create is a data validation sheet. Data validation. Right? And you'll notice that I do something called this like bracket. That's actually something that I've picked up since coming to LiveFlow. It's not something I've done before, but I do find it helpful. This is just a marker for myself to know that this is more of like a backend sheet. And as a matter of fact, once I'm done with the model, I'm probably just going to hide this sheet, right? And the reason is not because I want to hide information. It's more so just I don't want it to be a cluttered workbook, right? So I'm going to make this a data validation sheet. I'll explain to everybody what that'll entail. This worksheet is going to host all the drop downs, right? So if you're ever curious about changing the drop downs, you're going to know that it's coming from here, right? And then the last one that I'm going to have here is chart data, right? So chart data or input, right? Those are different names for it, but pretty much I'm going to create something so that it feeds into here, and then it's going to reference or be referenced by the dashboard sheet. Okay, the next thing that from an organizational perspective, once again, profit and loss 1, profit and loss 2, no idea what these are referencing, right? Obviously for LiveFlow, whenever you create a report, right, it says profit and loss. But for here, right, when we start to get organized, right, okay, demo, well, let me see what the difference is here. And I think I mentioned it before. This is 2023 data and 2024 data. Is there a more efficient way of doing this by having it in one? Yes, but for let's just try to change minimal things as possible for right now. So I'm going to say PL 2024, right? And I'm going to say I'm also going to add the company, right? So that's 2024. So now it's very clear to me and any user that this is demo company's profit and loss statement in 2023. What is the other information? Okay, balance sheet by month, demo Acme 2024. Okay, I'm going to take, pardon the French, BS DM demo 2024, right? So now I know that that's the balance sheet. What is this? This is BVA. This is BVA 2023, right? BVA demo 2023, and sheet 3. Quite frankly, I'm not 100% sure in terms of what the purposes of the sheet was, but let's just see if we're able to create this workbook without or our dashboard without referencing this particular sheet. The reason why I'm hesitant is I'm not too sure where this seems to be like a copy and paste. So as soon as I change this, it's not going to be reflected in the dashboard potentially, and it's not live, right? For all our new customers, right? Where is LiveFlow really valuable is that it's a live pulse, right? What you'll see here is that if you want to see 2024 data, what's going to happen is as the months go on, right? Each of the individual accounts, it's going to automatically appear here, right? Why that's important is that when you start to create your dashboard as the months go on, right, getting into that dynamic element, you're going to be able to create, dashboards that are more dynamic. Okay, so now we get into how do we create, the dynamic dashboard. The first thing that I want to do is actually create a dropdown. It would be great if we can make this so that it's, whenever we have March 2023, it appears here and here. How can we do that simply, right? And once again, this is the beginners. This is the first lesson.
Josh, we have a question. So
oh, yes.
someone's asking, the last tab looks like the budget. Shouldn't that stay constant unless directly changed?
Say that again. Maybe I can just check the chat. Constant list changed. What is it?
Shouldn't that stay constant unless directly changed?
Yes. So I guess there is different ways of doing it, right? The reason why is maybe here, right? It looks like this is you could, if you have LiveFlow, you can enter my own budget and you're able to enter it directly here, right? So it may be the case, you may be right here that they just want to pull the budget information, right? What I'm wondering is, if this changes, right, does that change everything else within the model? I guess it's more so like this is static information. There's no formulas being referenced. And so that's why I have this hesitation of using this worksheet. Okay, so I do want to make sure I cover the things that I was hoping to. So let's take it step by step. The first thing is, how can we get this dynamic workbook, right? So the first thing I want to have is I want to have a drop down. I know that I'm in my dashboard, I'm going to have something that's a drop down referencing the months. I'm also going to have a drop down that's probably referencing profit and loss accounts, right? So if I want to select certain accounts, is there a way in which I can do that, right? And what I mean by that is when we go to the dashboard, right? If it's revenue, right? But what happens if I want to change that to total cost of goods sold, right? Is there a way that I can change that very easily, right? And then, well, some accounts are not in the profit and loss statement. So maybe I want to actually reference the balance sheet, right? So maybe I'm going to have that as well here. So balance sheet. Okay, so let me take the months portion first, right? So if you're a LiveFlow customer, right, we make this actually we're not going to get into named ranges here. I'll let Alicia kind of get into it, but we have some really cool shortcuts in LiveFlow that makes this a lot easier. But we'll do it this way, the more manual way, right? Index, right? So index means that we're going to try to find that information. What are we trying to pull? So let's see. We're going to pull profit and loss months, and we're going to say for 2024, right? Actually, yeah, let's just do 2024, right? Index, and we've done it here. One thing that I want to do is actually lock the cells. The reason we do that is because what happens, if we're dragging this formula down and so forth, I'm always referencing, these months. The way we're going to do that is hit F4. Right, there's you'll notice that there's these dollar signs. Dollar signs lock the specific range. If you see $2 signs, that means it's set. It's barcode set, right? If you were to have $1 sign, it locks that row, right, next to the 10. And if you're, you see the dollar sign in front of the letter, that's locking the column, right? And we'll see practical examples of this. But for our example here, we're going to lock the months. Okay, what happened here? Oh, I see what happened. When Google Sheets is referencing it, we're going to see that it's moving horizontally. So we can do a transpose function to change that immediately, right? So now we've got that, right? So now we're able to see all the months below. And I do know that we only have 20 minutes left. So the next thing I'm going to do is take our P&L accounts. Right, so we're going to take our P&L accounts and we're going to plop them here, and we're going to do the same thing as index. This time around, we don't need to do a transpose because they're in the format that we want them to. Okay, now we get into the chart data, right? And the first thing is, now let's create that dropdown that I was talking about. So let's just say if we want month, right? So which month are we going to try to create this dashboard for, right? View grid lines, data validation. So now this appears right here. We're going to add a rule. And what we say is test 1, right? I'm just going to show you here, test 2, right? What this is doing here is that you're creating a dropdown. So now your only options are test 1 and test 2. But what happens if we want to reference our sheet? We're going to say drop down from a range. And then we're going to click this grid box. And we're going to go to data validation, right? If we go to data validation, we're going to select the months. Okay, now you'll see that all the months are appearing there, right? So now we go back to our tab here, right? And we're able to, we see that it violates, right? The reason why that is because we need to change the format to number, plain text, right? And once we do that, we have May 2024, right? Or March 2023. Okay, great. So once we do that, we go back to our dashboard. Now what we're able to do is actually link this to our chart data.
Josh, we have a question.
Yes.
When you index the profit loss balance sheet column in the data validation tab, will it dynamically update if a new account with activity is added in QBO, i.e. there is a new row in the profit and loss data sheet?
Don't quote me on this, but if it is, I think the way that Google Sheets interprets it is if it's between net income and income, it should get added, right? What I can tell you for a fact, right, is if you were to use LiveFlow, right? Maybe I'll just do it this way, right? If you are a LiveFlow user, right, index. One thing I do need to do is whenever you change the sheet names, right, for any of our LiveFlow users, one thing you should do is just refresh the workbook so that it has the proper connection, right? Now, why do I do this? Right, to your question of, well, does it always, can we make it more dynamic? Right, what we can do is PL, profit loss. Second. So I'm going to use this referencing PL demo row labels. Okay, so why did I do this? Right, is because with this LiveFlow function, you're essentially, if you were to add new QuickBook like accounts, it'll automatically pick up. I feel confident that even if you're not using a LiveFlow function, it should pick up, but I'm not 100% sure there. Okay, so going back to our dashboard, so what we see here is now we've made this drop down, right? So we're able to reference certain things, right? When it comes to how do we make it so that we want to now reference certain accounts, we're going to now create our index match formula. And I know this is probably the most complex formula, but it's the one that's the most useful, right? We're going to do first a data validation to pick up the accounts, right? And we're going to label this our PL, our profit and loss accounts. So it's the same process, right? So if we go to our data validation and we're going to select this, right? Okay. Once we've done that, when we go to our chart data, we're now able to select any of the accounts that we want to. So remember on our dashboard, we had, total income. We were also looking at, gross profit, and we were looking at, I think, total expenses. Okay. So why is this important, right? Is how we're going to construct this, right? If we were to construct an index match formula, we're able to create something pretty cool. I'm going to take it step by step, and I'm going to take a moment here to go through it again. If you're an expert at this, I apologize. The first part is referencing, right? So without LiveFlow referencing, what we want to do is we want to tell Google Sheets what is the information that you want to pull here, right? So we're going to pull the data that's within this, right? We're looking for the numbers. We're going to pull this. We're going to lock it. Just because of time, I'm just going to kind of go through the next part is match. We have to tell Google Sheets what is the row that we want to pull. We want to pull this row, right? We need to tell Google Sheets where we're going to pull that information from. So we're going to pull that information from here, right? So notice how everything aligns. We're going to lock that. 0 means that it's an exact match. We want you to find that exact account in this exact range. And we're going to do the same thing for the column. So Google Sheets is asking, okay, what do you want me to look for? I want you to look for April 2024. Where do you want me to look for it? You're going to look at the columns here. And we're going to lock that. It's 0. Okay, I know that was a lot, but that's all you need to know, right? And if we did this properly, right, what you'll see is if we Control Shift, 2 arrow keys, and I'm going to point out some shortcuts when we get there. Shift down arrow key and then Control D. What happened here? That's fine, right? Is if something like this happens. The reason is we're probably doing something wrong. What's the issue? The issue is that we've now lost April 2024. So this is where we get into that locking. So, and if we look at D4, that's what's being referenced. So we want to do hard lock it, $D, $4. And once we do that, okay, we now have this information. Why is this important? Well, guess what? Because we've made this dynamic, if we now change the different months to January 2024 or April 2024, what's now happening is all the figures are changing. Okay, this is all great, Josh, but what does this mean in terms of our dashboard, right? Is we can begin to start looking at how can we make this dashboard more dynamic. So when we talk about our Feb 2024 revenue, look how it's hard coded here. It's probably not the best way to do it, right? So what we can do is we can do equals, and we can go to our chart data, and we could say, okay, let's reference this, and then we'll do the ampersand. You'll see the formula bar, space. If you want to call it revenue, great. If you want to call it total income, that's perfectly fine too. And then in this case, these wants to use revenue. Great. So we did April 2024. Okay, so what does that mean for us? When we change April 2024 to May 2024, did it all work? Oh, our dashboard, great. Now it's May 2024, right? So the next thing that I want to cover, right, is well, actually, to be clear here, if everybody's clear on what happened here, is we created the dropdowns, right? That's referencing the accounts, right? We created a dropdown for the months, and then we created one formula, index match, to pull the relevant data. Now the question is, okay, instead of kind of doing this, right, you'll see this formula right here. Well, what happens, and I apologize if I forget the name, but somebody had mentioned in the chat, well, what happens if the new account is added? Well, guess what? In this particular model, it's still going to be referencing D14, right, which may be the improper account. In reality, the best thing to do is actually reference our chart data, right? So total income, right? So that we know that this information is changing. Expenses this month, right? Same idea, right? Is this is not dynamic, right? We actually already did this in our chart data. Why I like to have all this information is if I know that some information here is not corresponding to something in our profit and loss statement, right? Then I immediately, my train of thought is, okay, what is the back data here? All the inputs to my my dashboard are coming from the sheet. The information is not appearing properly in this sheet in all likelihood, right? And so we're able to create something like this. Okay, so if we go to our dashboard again, and the next thing that I said that I wanted to cover is this gross margin. Notice that the formatting is not right. It's not dynamic, right? And why is that? Okay, so what we can do is we can create gross margin, right? If we create gross margin, we can take our gross profit, we can divide it by our total income. If you're on an Excel, it's Alt HP. But let's see, is our total income? Well, let's see if I made a mistake in the formula. Hold up a second. Chart data. Oh, it's because I see what happened. It's because it's in our demo company. Our demo company is already making profits in June, and that's why, and no cost to it. So that's why that appeared. But if you look at February 2024, for instance, right, our gross profit margin is 92.77, right? So we should be able to feed that information into our dashboard, right? So if we do this, right? Now we've kind of eliminated this right here. The problem, once again, is if you have something like this, how is a user supposed to know that there is, information here? It can be very problematic, right? In certain parts in this model, there's actually hard coding in it, like 92 divided by 100. That's definitely a bad practice to have. So I would try to avoid that at all costs, right? So that's how we get this percentage, right? The beauty of LiveFlow is that in some of, I'll say in some of our competitors, right, that you're able to create some of these nice visuals, but you can't get the level of customization, right? For you, for one set of clients, it's maybe gross profit margin, right? For another set, it's prime cost, right? For restaurants, I forget the exact calculation because I'm not 100% proficient in it, but I think it's like total income divided, minus your COGS minus something else, labor or whatever it may be. But they have certain metrics, right? And why that's important for us is when we're creating this chart data, maybe one of these dropdowns is labor, right? And then we're able to just add our labor and our COGS and then subtract it from our total income, right? And then we're able to get our prime cost and that be dynamic, right? And so then when we toggle through the months, we're able to kind of see, our ratios change, right? We can do, and because of time constraints, we can do the same exact thing with our balance sheet. And maybe that's a good practice as, something that if you're curious to see whether or not you can create something like this, is do the same exact thing, except work on the balance sheet and see if you can pull certain figures, right? I'm going to pause right there because I know we only have 8 minutes, and there's a lot more information, but I want to see if there's any particular burning questions from people. It's like, it would be great if Josh can just go over this, and let me see if I can answer it here in 8 minutes. Okay. Well, that's either that's a really great sign or a really bad sign, Sahej. But if there's no questions, but there's you can always reach out to well, depends on the case, right? But if there's like certain thing, hey Josh, index matches. Okay, great. Thanks, Tanya. And so yeah, if there's any specific things that I covered here, then sorry, I get notification on the chat. So great that this is useful. Then feel free to reach out. Of course, the templates and things like that. Sahej, if you could just drop my link in the chat as well. But I do have one last few things that I just wanted to cover on the slides front. Oh, let's see. So let's see here. Okay, let's go back with the remaining minutes. I know we covered, some of the core components. There are other things like formatting, etc., that are very important, that we can definitely delve into in a future session. So we covered all this. Yep. So one thing that I do, so I covered this session, but Alicia, who's far more talented, is going to cover the next ones. If anybody could kind of drop in some of the things they would love to see in the next session, that would be very much helpful in how we kind of create the content for it. So feel free to put that in the chat.
We actually have 2 questions, Josh. So
yes.
while you guys are writing in your questions or what you'd like to see in part 2, first question is, Josh, why index match and not some product?
Some product. I'll be sometimes I'll give my honest answer. I haven't used some product too often. I found that index match for me to this day has not had an issue with me. There may be a way to do it. There's probably tons of ways to get the same exact information. That's kind of what I love about spreadsheets. If some product works for you and it's pulling the proper information and it's dynamic, then by all means go for it.
And Josh, the other one is, I don't know if you remember this, but when you got the original error on the chart data tab, what did you do to fix it?
All right, let me check this out here. Let's see, the original error in the chart data tab. Now I'm just trying to remember. Oh, it was I see. I think now I remember. Unfortunately, I think I closed out of it, but I do remember it. So it was referencing that NA, right? Hashtag NA. Why did that hashtag NA? It is because of the locking, right? And maybe let's see. Yes, it's because of the locking, right? Unfortunately, I think I didn't closed out when I was trying to reshare the PDF. But essentially what it is we had created that dropdown for April or March 2024, and then we had our corresponding rows, right? And we had created the proper index match formula for that first total income row, right? And we were able to pull that information. But as soon as we drag that formula down, and once again, that's Shift down arrow key and then Control D for anybody who's looking for shortcuts, right? We had that NA. The reason is because each time when we were going down a cell, right, Google Sheets doesn't know that you're trying to make sure that Feb 2024 stays static, right? So what we needed to do was we needed to lock that cell. So we just need to $sign and then $sign again to make sure that it is the proper referencing. So hopefully that's the answer, but please do let me know if it's not, or feel free to schedule a call and we can go over that too.
Julie responded actually, Josh, and she said no. It was an error that says cell violates the data validation rules set on the cell.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. So what you have to do there is you need to go to format and then change number format to plain text. That's how Google Sheets, and we're launching Excel very shortly. But in Google Sheets, we just need to change that formatting to plain text, right? So number plain text, and then you're able to kind of not have that that error. With regards to, of course, I have to shamelessly plug one. The premium templates that are out there, they're pretty much built out for you, right? So if you're here or you're interested in LiveFlow, right? What I'll do here, right, is if we have a second, right, is so if you're wondering, like, Josh, this is great. Is there any way that LiveFlow can actually just do this for me, and build out some of these models? We have you know, a ton of different models, hundreds of different, over 100, I think it is, of templates in which we do this, right? And Saj, you can see my screen, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So for instance, right, if we have consolidation, that's a product. If you're interested in that, feel free to let me know. But you know, this one is one of my favorites, which is, and you'll see that there's a common string of ways in which we construct these premium templates. You know, if you want to create a comparison of, you know, month over month or how your specific company is doing, right? The end product is something that looks like this, right? In which you have contributors, KPI monitors, etc. But the thing that I want to pay more attention to, because this is a financial modeling, is something that looks like this. This is something that we've released to our clients, right? Is I try to make it as simple as possible for anybody who's touching this, right? To know exactly how to navigate this. And I put it here, like, you know, this color signifies an input cell that you can adjust. Inputting information in the cell shows there's a risk of something breaking, right? So you can change it, but there's a risk of something breaking, right? So if you're able to, you know, change any one of these things, right, you're able to do so. And for our, you know, people who are just taking a look at LiveFlow for the first time, one of the beautiful parts is that, let's say you create your ideal dashboard, right, and you want to roll it out to 100 clients or, you know, 15 clients, whatever it may be, you can do so with just clicking 2 buttons, right? So instead of having Acme US, all your QuickBooks files are going to appear here, right? Instead, I'm going to update report, and now all the referencing for this dashboard, for this financial model, is going to reference our new company, Demo Acme Inc., right? And now our dashboard will dynamically change. For the reason why there's NA is because we've got to make sure that there's proper referencing, etc. Yeah, I do want to kind of share that, of course. If you have any questions, I know that's at time, and there's a lot of me speaking. And I'd love to kind of hop on with calls, whether if you're a new customer or thinking about LiveFlow or thinking about automating your financial reporting, or you're an existing one thinking about how can I up my game in dashboards, how can I create more dynamic and future-proof financial models. I'm happy to, of course, you know, have a conversation. My calendar is fairly open. Don't tell my manager, but yeah, that's it's always, you know, happy to chat.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks everyone for attending. If you haven't signed up for next week's intermediate session, make sure you do that, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, folks. Bye.
Perfect. Take care.